Welcome to Engagement with Asynchronous Learning. This is Joan Schottenfeld. I'm a teacher in Boston. And if you remember, in our first video, Asynchronous Vocabulary Learning, we showed you the technology involved in creating an online vocabulary class. This video will show you how to engage with your students through your Google Forms. Though this is an asynchronous lesson that the student would be doing on their own without immediate teacher involvement, it is still teaching, and good teaching is good whether it is online or in person. The same concern for student engagement should be apparent, and explicit instruction should always be the basis for the lesson. This asynchronous vocabulary lesson is based on the STAR model. Using STAR strategies and explicit instruction is evident throughout. The 5 fundamentals of effective instruction include active student engagement, numerous practice opportunities, time for students to reflect on the usefulness of what they are learning, a way to monitor the effectiveness of the instruction, and motivation to persist based on instruction and feedback. Direct and explicit teaching methods include a gradual release of responsibility through explanation. This is where the teacher explains the strategy to the class and tells them how to use it and why it is useful, sometimes known as the I do. In this step, the students listen to the explanation. Modeling, where the teacher models how the strategy is used, also an I do, and also the students are just listening. Guided practice. This is where the students practice using the strategy in pairs or groups with the teacher providing any scaffolding that they might need. This is sometimes known as the we do. And finally, application. The students finally apply what they have learned to different texts, sometimes known as the you do. With synchronous learning, it's usually synonymous with teacher-learner engagement, since both the teacher and the learner are in the same room, Zoom or otherwise, facing each other, and they can engage at any time. With asynchronous learning, the teacher prepares a lesson that the student completes on his or her own. While this makes engagement more challenging, it can be still be fairly simple to achieve. When we speak of teacher-student engagement, we are thinking of the following: student questioning with teacher response in a reasonable amount of time, teacher feedback on completed student work, again in a reasonable amount of time, formative assessment that allows the teacher to track a student's progress as they are learning, which also enables the teacher to adapt a lesson to the student's progress. And finally, summative assessment that allows the teacher to understand if the student has in fact learned what they set up to teach. When you set up the Google form as a quiz or just as a form, there are settings available to make engaging the student easier. In the settings, you can stipulate that your students are allowed to change their submissions if they feel that they may do better on a second try. They can see missed questions and correct answers. You can also stipulate that you can provide answer feedback for each question along with the correct answer, enabling you to add comments to each or selected answers if you wish. When you return the graded form, there is room to add a comment in addition to the grade. You can change the setting so that an essay or an answer is returned via a Google Doc, making sure that each student is assigned their own Google Doc to work on. When the docs are returned, you can comment directly on the essay, pointing out where things need to be changed or corrected. And now I will show you how to set up your form to make it more engaging. This is my classroom, Read, Write, Social Studies, Spring 2021. As you can see, up here, there is a section where you can stream. That is where you can communicate with your class and you can announce upcoming events or assignments, anything that you wish. Just make it short and don't get too involved here. As you can see, after I clicked on classwork, it brought up my page, and this is where the students can see where their lessons are. This is also where you are going to create your Google form. You click on create, and this is where you can choose to do an assignment, a quiz assignment, pose a question, some material, even reuse a post, or a topic, which are these headings that you can see. I normally choose assignment because sometimes I'm not sure whether I want it to be a quiz or not. When you click up on assignment, you will see this page, and I usually give it a title, so I think I will call it vocabulary. And over here, I write some instructions. View the video and then fill out the form. So now my students know what they should do. This is where you can add or create. If you go to add, you will notice there's a drop-down menu, and you can add something from your Google Drive that you've already created, a link to another place, a file, or you can link something directly from YouTube. This is where I click usually link, and I add the link to my YouTube video that I've already created. If you go over here to create, you can see another drop-down menu, and here you can create a Google Doc, slides, sheets, which are spreadsheets, drawings, and forms. This is where you can choose Google Docs, and as you can see, it's creating one. You can give it a title, and when you close it out, you will then see this. Students can view file, but if you click here, you have students can edit file and make a copy for each student. This is where you should make a copy for each student so that everyone has their own form to work on. If you don't, they will end up overwriting each other's forms and yours as well. So this is where you will make a copy. The students will write on it, return it, and that is where you can engage with them by giving them comments on how they've done. I usually go to create, and this is where I go into my Google Forms. Here, I always give it a title. And if you click here, it will automatically give it the title. This is also where if you go up here, you see settings. When you click on settings, this is where you can set things up so your form is even more engaging for the students. I always collect emails so that I can send them an email directly from Google Forms. I don't limit to one response. I actually let them edit after submit, and I let them see the summary charts and the text responses. Today I've decided I am going to make it a quiz, so this is where I would click on the button, which makes it a quiz, and this will assign point values to the questions. I do not release it immediately. I always click here so that I get a chance to look at the form and comment on the form before they get it back. And then they can see missed questions and correct answers. And then make sure and save it. When I get back here, I always customize my theme to make it even more engaging for my students. So I choose an image, and let's say I choose work and school, and let's make it really colorful so that it will catch their eye. Sometimes I connect my Google Forms with the same image, so that makes it easy for the students to know what goes with what and for me as well. And then I always make sure that my very first question is name, so that you know who's sending you the form, because their emails don't always tell you what their names are. Now, if you go over here to the answer key, you will see this very important button that says Add Answer Feedback. If you choose that, you can enter on the form any feedback that you want for their answers, and that is another way to engage with them. And then you click Done, and you are done with the form. When you go back here, make sure and put a due date in. So let's just make this June 21st. And you can either assign or schedule it, and it will go directly onto your Google Classroom, or you can just save the draft. I usually schedule it for a certain date, and that way it is automatically scheduled and I can forget about it, and it will show up on the student's classroom. Okay, now I'm going to show you how you engage with your students while correcting the form that they've submitted. This is vocabulary number 5, the same unit that we did in our last video. And you can see that you have the questions and responses. So you click on responses, you go to individual, and here you have all of your students that have filled out your form. And as you can see, Pam has done this form 2 times. So we're going to click on the second one because she obviously saw something that she corrected. And now we're going to see what she's done. We're going to be correcting the form as we go. Right now, I had done a multiple choice section, and so far that was automatically corrected because I gave the correct answers, and she's gotten 40 out of a possible what would have been a 50 points. So let's see how she did. These are my words. There are times when she got that right. Many of my favorite songs are anonymous. She got that one right. She got this one wrong. Before taking my driving test, I was incredibly bestowed since I had failed my first one. Now, she's already been given 0 points, but I'm going to add my feedback, and I'm going to say bestow means to give. Check that again. And I'm going to save that, and she's going to see that. We'll go to the next one. She got that one right, and notice that she got bestow correct here. She got arrogant right, so she got 40 out of 50, so she did pretty well. You can add individual feedback, and you can say arrogant, and you can say that was a hard word. You did really well. And that way you can give her some encouragement. The next section was a little harder, and here they had to write complete sentences using the vocabulary. So my question was, have you ever received an anonymous gift or letter? From whom? And unfortunately, Pam just said, no, I have not. I specifically asked her to use the vocabulary. So it would be here that I would add my individual feedback and say, Pam, that is a sentence, but you didn't use the vocabulary. Here, she said, have you ever known anyone who was arrogant, so arrogant that they took it for granted? And again, she just said, no, I have not. So I will say, again, Pam, I'd like to see a complete sentence using the word so that I really know that you know what the word means. Here, she did actually use the word finally, and she has a complete sentence. However, that's not the answer. And I would tell her, Pam, you should watch the video again. And she will have to watch the video because that was my Easter egg, as you could say, that if they get that question right, I always include a question that they have to watch the video in order to get right, and that one she did not get right, which means she didn't pay attention or she really didn't watch the video. And then there is this one, which she did very well. She still didn't use the word apprehensive, but I do like what she said, and I could say that. And again, she gave me a very good sentence. She just never uses the vocabulary word. So here I would keep saying, please, Pam, next time you need to use the vocabulary in a complete sentence so that I understand. So you could get back to them with this feedback and give them a pat on the back, or you can just tell them where they've gone wrong. And that is where you can engage with them through your Google form. Once you have given them your corrections and they are done, you can inform your students that they can email you or text or call you if they have any questions. You can also arrange a private one-on-one Zoom chat. I do that quite often, and my students like having me one-on-one so we could talk about. And actually, I might have asked Pam if we could have a little chat and just talk with her a little bit about how you can use the vocabulary in the sentence that you're giving me. And so next time when she did it, she would know what she was doing. But make sure you set boundaries, letting your students know when you're available to chat, because I have gotten calls at midnight. You can also set up online office hours when your students can drop into Zoom chat without making an appointment. You can say, I'm available Tuesday and Thursday mornings from 10 to 12. My students like that. That way they don't have to make an appointment. They know they can just drop into my office whenever they need to. I really believe that even when schools return to in-person learning, the future of teaching will look different from the model that we're used to. The future may very well be a hybrid flex model where online learning is made available to all students. And so when a student is ill and forced to miss class, or if their children are ill, or if there's any other reason, if they get up late, if the school maintains an online presence, they can still complete their work at home and meet the teacher face-to-face on Zoom. And also, the videos can be viewed multiple times by the students and therefore reinforce their learning. Then they can maintain a foothold in class thanks to the digital world and not fall behind in their studies.